guys, and welcome to episode 10 of Music with Paul. Hope you're all doing well still, and glad you're all still enjoying the videos. Yeah, cool. We're going to do some new stuff today. We're going to learn some new things, and we're going to look at some more instruments as well. So I hope you enjoy. So today we're going to learn about major and minor chords. We looked at scales last time, but we're going to look at chords this time. Now a chord is basically when you play a bunch of notes at the same time. So you get kind of a fuller sound, lots of different sounds all together, playing different notes. And major chords sound happy, and minor chords sound sad. Now there's a few more complex rules to it, but generally that's it. Now today I'm going to teach you the rule to be able to make a major chord or a minor chord and what the difference is between them. Now chords normally consists of at least 3 notes, usually 3 notes basically. You can have more and you can have less, but usually chords consists of 3 notes. Now, the only difference between a major chord and a minor chord is not very much. It's just the middle note changes very, very slightly. And I'm going to show you that, and I'm also going to show you a rule how to make these chords. So if you look at my keyboard here, all right, I'm going to make you a chord, okay? I'm going to start on C because it's easy, all right? Now I'm going to go... Now this is a chord of C major, and you can see that I'm playing C, E and G there. Okay, I'm pushing down this one, and this one. Now the only difference between this major chord and a minor chord is I'm going to take this middle one and move it down 1 semitone. So it's... Now do you hear how that sounds sadder? Okay, major, minor. The only difference is this middle note, okay, what we call the third of the chord. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to teach you a rule to help you remember. Now for a major chord, any major chord, you start on a note. So say you want to make a C major, you could start on C. And what I want you to do is miss out 3 semitones. So 1, 2, 3, miss those out, and then you go to the next one, right? Then I want you to miss 2 out, 1, 2, and then you have the next note, okay? And that is C major. Now this rule works wherever you start, So for example, if I want to do F major, I could start on F. Now the rule is miss 3, 1, 2, 3, and then miss 2, 1, 2, and there's F major, okay? Now, if I wanted to do a note that might be a bit more difficult, I might have to use some black notes. I could start on, say, let's start on D, okay? So D, miss 3, 1, 2, 3, miss 2, 1, 2, and I've got D major, okay? So whatever you start on, the rule for a major chord is miss 3, 1, 2, 3, and then miss 2. Okay? Miss out 3, miss out 2. That's the rule for a major chord. Now for a minor chord, all you do is swap that rule round. So for a minor chord, you miss 2 and then miss 3. So for a C minor, I'd start on C, and I'm going to miss out 2. So 1, 2, then I'm going to miss out 3. 1, 2, 3, and that works for that. Now let's go back to D again. We went to D before. Now D major was this. So I did 1, missed out 3, then missed out 2. But for D minor, I'm going to do it the other way around. I'm going to miss out 2, 1, 2, miss out 3, 1, 2, 3. And you can hear that's D minor, and it sounds a bit more sad, doesn't it? That works wherever you start. Now some of them might be more difficult. So for example, if I do B, if I want to do B major, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, that's B major. So I have to use 2 black notes there. Now for B minor, miss 2, miss out 3, B minor, okay? And that's basically the easy way of making major or minor chords. So, following on from our other sessions on the families of instruments in the orchestra, the last family that we're going to look at is the percussion family. We've already looked at strings and woodwind and brass, and the one that's left is percussion. Now, this is the biggest, the largest family in the orchestra. Now, percussion instruments include any instrument that makes a sound when it's hit, shaken or scraped. Okay, so any instrument that involves hitting or scraping or shaking or doing anything like that counts as a percussion instrument. It's not easy to be a percussionist because it takes a lot of practice to hit an instrument with the right amount of strength in the right place and at the right time. Some percussion instruments are tuned and can sound different notes, like a xylophone or a timpani. And some are untuned with no definite pitch, like the bass drum, cymbals that just go psh, or castanets. Percussion instruments keep the rhythm of a piece of music, or they make special sounds and add excitement and colour. Unlike most of the other players in the orchestra, a percussionist will usually play many different instruments in one piece of music. The most common percussion instruments in the orchestra include the timpani, the xylophone, cymbals, triangles, snare drum, bass drum, tambourine, maracas, gongs, chimes, loads of things. Okay. Now, I actually had to play percussion in an orchestra once. When I used to teach music in another school, we used to have to sort of fill in if we didn't have a student that played any of the instruments. And I remember I had to play percussion once, and it was the craziest, most difficult thing ever, because I had to play the timpani, the kettle drums, but I also had some chimes to play and a cymbal. I had to be really on it and run around and play all these different things, and it was so difficult. So I don't envy the percussionists in the orchestra because they have a lot of things to do. So let's go over some of those instruments. Now, the first one that I'm going to look at is a bit of a controversial one, the piano. Now, people disagree about whether the piano is a percussion instrument or a string instrument because you play it by hitting its 88 black and white keys with your fingers, which suggests that it belongs in the percussion family. However, the keys lift hammers inside the piano which strike strings. And actually, the piano has more strings than any of the string instruments, which produces distinctive sound. Which family do you think it belongs to? Wherever it fits in, there's no disputing the fact that the piano has the largest range of any instrument in the orchestra. It's a tuned instrument, and you can play many notes at once using both your hands. So within the orchestra, the piano usually supports the harmony, but it has another role as a solo instrument sometimes, playing both melody and the harmony. So yeah, it's a percussion instrument because you hit it and it's got hammers that hit things and you have to hit it with your hands, but it's got lots of strings. So I suppose you could argue that it goes in the string family. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter, really. But other percussion instruments, the timpani. Now, the timpani look like big polished bowls or upside down tea kettles, which is why they're also called kettle drums. They are big copper pots with drum heads made of calf skin or plastic stretched over their tops. Timpani tuned instruments, which means they can play different notes. The timpanist changes the pitch by stretching or loosening the drum heads, which are attached to a foot pedal. Timpani are a central part of the percussion family because they support the rhythm, melody and the harmony. Most orchestras have 4 timpani of different sizes and tuned to different pitches, and they're usually played by one musician who hits the drum heads with felt-tipped mallets or wooden sticks. The timpani player must have a very good ear because he or she usually needs to change the pitches of the drums during performances. The xylophone. The xylophone originally came from Africa and Asia, but has a Greek name that means wood sound. The modern xylophone has wooden bars or keys arranged like the keys of a piano, which the player hits with a mallet. You can change the quality of the pitch by using different kinds of mallets, so hard ones or soft ones, and by hitting the wooden bars in different ways. Attached to the bottom of the wooden bars are metal tubes called resonators where the sound vibrates. This gives the xylophone its bright, bell-like sound.
There are several other instruments similar to the xylophone, which are also part of the percussion family. They include the marimba, a larger version of the xylophone with wood or plastic resonators attached to the bottom of the wooden keys, which give it a mellower, more rounded sound, and the vibraphone, or known as the vibes, which has both metal bars and metal resonators with small rotating discs inside. Now the discs are attached to a rod which is turned by an electric motor, and when you play a sustained note on the vibes and the motor's running, the disc creates vibrato or wiggly pitch, so it makes it sort of wobble. The sound wobbles up and down. In addition, percussionists often play a glockenspiel, which is a miniature xylophone with metal bars instead of wood. The percussionist uses hard mallets to play the glockenspiel, which sound like clear, tinkling bells. I think you got some of those at school. Cymbals. Cymbals are the biggest noise makers of the orchestra. They're two large metal discs, usually made of spun bronze. Now, cymbals which are untuned come in a range of sizes, from quite small to very large. The larger the cymbal, the lower the sound they make. Cymbals can be used for drama and excitement, to accent the rhythm or create delicate sound effects. You can play the cymbals either by hitting one cymbal against the other, or you can use sticks or mallets or brushes to hit one or both cymbals. A triangle. Now, you've probably played a triangle yourself at one time or other. It's a small metal bar that's bent into the shape of a triangle and makes a ringing sound when you hit it. There are many different sizes of triangles, and each one sounds a different pitch. You play the triangle by holding it on a string and striking it with a metal beaker. The size and thickness of the beater can change the sound the triangle makes. Snare drum. The snare drum is a smallish drum made of wood or brass, with drum heads made of calfskin or plastic, stretched over both ends of a hollow cylinder. It has a set of wire-wrapped strings stretched across the bottom head, which is called the snare, which gives the snare drum its unique rattling sound when the drum is hit. A small switch on the side of the drum allows the player to turn the snare on or off, depending on the requirements of the piece. The snare drum is an untuned drum, so it doesn't sound distinct pitches. It's often used in military music and is a central part of any marching band. It makes that rat-a-tat-tat sort of sound. Snare drums are used to keep the rhythm and make special sounds such as drum rolls. You play the snare drum by hitting the top with drumsticks, mallets or brushes. Now, have any of you ever played the drum kit in a rock band, and I think you've got one of those at school as well, the snare drum is the one that sits in between your legs, and it makes that kind of like high rat-a-tat kind of sound. It's quite a fun one to play. The bass drum. The bass drum, like the double bass, is the biggest member of the percussion family and therefore makes the lowest sounds. The bass drum is built like a very large snare drum, but without the snare. It's also untuned. You play the bass drum by hitting either drum head with sticks that have large, soft heads, often covered with sheepskin or felt. It can produce a lot of different sounds, from roaring thunder to the softest whispers. Tambourines. Now, you probably played one of these as well. A tambourine is a small drum with metal jingles set into the edges. Both the drum head and the jingles are untuned, and to play it, you hold it in one hand and tap, shake or hit it, usually against your other hand. Maracas. Now, maracas come from Mexico, and they're basically rattles, often made from gourds, which is a type of squash, filled with dried seeds, beads, or even tiny ball bearings to make them rattle. Maracas can be also made of wood or plastic, and the sound they make depends on what they're made of. To play them, you hold them in your hands and you shake them. The gong. The gong is also known as a tam-tam. It's a very large metal plate that hangs suspended from a metal pipe. It looks similar to a cymbal, and it's also untuned, but it's much larger and has a raised centre. To play it, you hit the centre with a soft mallet, and depending on how hard you hit it, you can make a deafening crash or a really soft kind of flicker of sound. Chimes. Now, chimes are metal tubes of different lengths that are hung from a metal frame. When you strike the tubes with a mallet, they sound like ringing bells of a church. Each chime sounds a different pitch. You can also run your fingers along them and make a kind of glissando kind of like sound with it too. Castanets. Now these are from Spain, and they're used to punctuate the music with a distinctive kind of clickety-clack kind of sound. Basically, castanets are made of two pieces of wood tied together, and to play them you hold them with your fingers and click the two pieces of wood together. Or in the orchestra, like these ones, castanets are sometimes mounted on a piece of wood, and the percussionist hits them by sort of playing by hit them with their hands, like tapping them. A celeste. Now a celeste looks like a tiny upright piano and sounds a lot like a glockenspiel with its delicate bell-like tone. Celestas usually have a keyboard of about 49 to 65 keys, and as with the piano, you make the sound on the celeste by pressing down on the key with your finger, which lifts a hammer inside and strikes a metal bar instead of a string. You can play many notes at once using both your hands. Great, so I hope you had fun learning about lots of percussion instruments there. I'm going to play you a few clips of someone playing some percussion instruments now, so you can hear how they sound in real life. Yeah, have a listen and see what you think. Okay, so you've probably guessed your music challenge for this week is to continue with our theme, and I would like you to find 5 bands or artists that begin with the letter H. So yeah, see if you can find any bands. I can think of a few, but I'm not going to tell you because I want you to find them. Remember, have a listen to them, see what you think, and hopefully you might discover something that you'll like that's new. Okay, once again, thank you for listening. I hope you're all doing all right, and look forward to seeing you soon.